I think we as people, individuals, whatever you want to call um, ourselves, have a tendency to believe that we can control everything and that by thinking through things, by spending more time and effort, that we can control how things happen. And I think, at least in my life, much of my growing up has been realizing I can't control shit. I I really can't. And first of all, I don't have the bandwidth for it. And I often, I might have this sort of perception of the way things should be, and it doesn't work out that way. And so it's me managing my emotions, my responses when it doesn't go as planned, and thinking like, really, it would be nice if it all worked out in this orderly fashion, but that is a bit of a pipe dream. I think, like, at least in my immediate circle, it has very much been this, let's just take a step back and see how things go. And I wish I can, that's the thing. I think, like, all of us are in this sort of, not only with our own selves, we think that we're in control of our own selves, right? Like, some people might get religious and say that, yeah, there's a higher being that is in control of you. I think it's even more like simplistic than that. It's just that there's a lot of biological processes and psychological processes that often operate across human beings that we can't rationalize our way through. We can't sort of think our way through, no matter how intelligent or how willing even that we actually are, because that is a bit of a biological process to even think about, will and all of that kind of stuff. But then on top of it, we think that we should sort of control other people, control other circumstances, that we can kind of manage it. And we think simply, one of the things that we're taught as academics is to look at, why things happen or how things happen. And then if we simply understood why and how, we'd be able to control all of this happening. And in my experience, that even when you know the why and the how, it's often very difficult to know what to actually do, to figure it out. And that even when you try to do your best, right? Like, even when we have these, much of the sort of knowledge that we have is stochastic, right? It means it changes. We have a really poor understanding, and then we sort of proclamate, this is the way that things actually happen, right? Like, that is the job of doing research, is to proclamate. But when you look at into the evidence, it's often extraordinarily squishy. Like, you're doing well if you explain, not explain 10%, but that means that there's 90% that is not explained. And in converting that to real life circumstances or real life scenarios, um, that means that almost always, by default, it's not going to work out in the way that you intended it to, and you're not going to understand how to actually do it properly. So much of, even when I'm well intentioned and I think, like, I need to, help out and, you know, think of control. So helping is often like my intention to control things, right? Like, I think that if I just intervene, if I just do this, then everything will work out. It'll be kind of a positive outcome. But what you're forgetting is that, circumstances on the other side, agents on the other side, people on the other side, whatever you want to call it, individuals on the other side of that action that you're trying to want to help out, um, have their own thoughts and their own way of doing things. And then there's even this sort of field in game theory that sort of looks at sort of repeated games when in the the idea is that you try to think it's head in terms of these number of moves or what everybody else is doing. But you're realizing in those circumstances, they're so well defined that it doesn't translate well to real life. Like people can just like walk away. Um, and they're gonna do their own thing, right? I think much of what I've had to learn is a lot of humility, a lot of definitely eating a lot of humble pie, a lot of stepping back and just staying in my little tiny, 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 tiny world. Um, really reflecting on what I can and can't do, realize that there's a lot bigger forces beyond me. And then on top of it, that even if I'm doing the action that is well intended, that actually will work, that it takes years and years and years of repeating the same action before it actually does work, before everything kind of comes together. And that all of that is extraordinarily difficult to sort of accept as human beings, right? Like I think a lot of these very emotional responses that I get, um, and I'm reflecting on myself that I get extraordinarily emotional responses because I think I can control things. I think I have, you know, the intentionality, the understanding to to really intervene and to do things. And ultimately I can't, right? Like ultimately, even if I did intervene, very little would happen. I think of uh, I think about, academics that think that they can go and do something like that. The Reciprocity Project is a perfect example because here I was, I thought, this would be super easy. And I'm working towards something, it's helping out other researchers. I'm like, well, that would be easy to get them to back behind this platform and get people excited. And no, it's not the case, right? Like, you can't get people excited about something. And I might be doing everything right with it. And I might be, well intentioned, and it just takes years and years and years of doing this, of spending money after money, being, the idiot that's willing to do this, um, the bumbling fool, maybe it's a better way to say it, of of doing this, but I get back up, and I do it, right? And I all of this was just like it's under the assumption that I can control things. I understand. I'm look at how smart I am. Um, all of that sort of thought process that yeah, I'm in control of everything. Um, and the truth is no. None of it's in your control like you think it is. Um, none of it is as orderly as you think it is. And people that you thought were in your pocket are not in your pocket. It's a big reveal when you do something like this. That's the interesting thing. It's like, oh yeah, you really get a sense of, you know, cheap talk and all those kind of like so cheap talk is kind of like hollow language that people use, that they say one thing and kind of mean the other. Like you really get a sense of all of that, and you learn to just kind of walk forward regardless, right? Like I am doing something that is different, unique, and that's okay, right? Like that's where you simply have to say is if it helps me out, then that's the only thing that matters. It's perhaps the only thing that I can somewhat control. But again, it's a whole biological processes. So am I actually controlling it? I don't know. But um, my thoughts is that you need to take a step back and accept the world as it is. And if you're going to do anything, you have to be a lot more humble in what you expect, humble in what's going to happen, and just live life. Right. I think ultimately that's the best message I can ever send. All right. Take care and have a wonderful day.